So in this video today, guys, I want to go into the topic, or more the kind of a simplification of the idea of shadow work. Now, the idea is very vague when we look at it from where it originated from, within Carl Jung and his psychological approach, which kind of merged spirituality with psychology and all this. And oftentimes it seems to be the case that a lot of people who talk about the idea of shadow work it kind of just gets lost in the vagueness of what it actually is. Because spiritualism doesn't really have much of a moral backbone to it. It's very vague when it comes down to what religiosity represents, which is to be grounded in a moral value structure and in a moral law that comes from itself, whatever religion it may be. And I think the bridge that needs to be connected, and where the obvious gap is, the gaping hole with things like spiritualism, is because of this lack of moral structure. It needs to be bridged. And the only way for that to happen is to really take away this idea of spiritualism from these ideas and really try and bring them back into something that's more integral with a moral framework, or something that's more self-observing of our true selves, or of our experiences, of our traumas and things like this. Because if you go around, you look on YouTube and stuff, people talking about shadow work, the term is very vague. It's shadow work. What does that mean? Does that mean integrating, as you see a lot, your dark side? Which is, what does that mean? It's not something that has the term itself, or the terminology wrapped around it, doesn't have a moral framework within something that is of religiosity. Because if you look at Christianity or Catholicism, you have at least the idea of the dark night of the soul, which is very much a Christian understanding of shadow work, which is to sit with oneself, with God, and observe the feelings, observe the experiences of an existential crisis, you could say, with yourself, or of that where you're trying to find connection with God, which is the idea of theosis within orthodoxy, developing your connection to God, which is the idea of theosis. Now, a very simple way we can jump into this with the idea of shadow work is at least try and bring it down to something very simple for an exercise. So, and one way of doing that is identifying what we already identify very well with ourselves, which is our personas, right? Our personalities, the things that are, our faces, or what some people may call the mask of ourselves, which truly it shouldn't be the mask of ourselves, because our persona should at least be in true alignment with our honest, integral selves as much as possible. So it is honestly, obviously, the face of ourselves. And one way of identifying kind of shadow elements of ourselves is to look at what we like most about ourselves. Because, of course, if we have a personality, our persona, we embody our personality in the things in which we like most about ourselves, our certain characteristics, certain traits, certain things that we're very good at. We embody our personality around those things. So, for example, so this is a question for yourself. What is the thing that you like the most about yourself? And the characteristics and the traits that you like most about yourself. And you name them out. Maybe it's a couple of things. Could be your industriousness, how good you are at working, your ability to be very down to earth when it comes to being very focused with what you want to do. Could be anything. Could be your strong ability to be very compassionate with others, to be very empathetic with other people when it comes to understanding what people are going through, all of these types of things, your ability to have certain social skills that are very valuable, all of that kind of stuff. Could be anything, right? And what it is that you embody your personality around the most, because if, of course, maybe some traits are of that, maybe you work a lot, maybe you are very industrious, so you like to be maybe an entrepreneur of some kind, you like to work in these different spaces, or maybe you're a people person because you like to work with people on a more social level, to understand people on a deeper level, because you get a lot of, extroverted enjoyment out of that, because it's a big part of your personality. Now, what is a good way of identifying shadow characteristics in relation to the persona is looking at what those are, but looking at the negative outcomes of those traits in which we don't regard as important to our persona, that is on the front of everything, the mask, the face of everything, that we put forward to everything. So for example, if you're very industrious, hardworking, diligent, all this type of stuff, what are some negative traits that come from that often we don't even really think about? What those could be are things like impatience, stubbornness, being very, not being very selfish, not listening to what other people need from you, possibly being very self-centered with your own, ambitions all the time, maybe not having a good balanced lifestyle in that regard, because if you're very industrious, if you're working all the time and you're very focused on your own thing, maybe you neglect certain things of yourself that you don't really pay too much attention to, because that thing in which you're focused on so much that is part of your personality is so focal to you. It's your focal point of how you live your life. So these are things that can be regarded as the shadows of your persona. So these are things that we might kind of like avoid. We don't really look into them that much. Maybe if, you have the idea, of course, of being very selfish in regard to possibly individuals who work very hard, things like this. But then you have maybe on the flip side of someone who's very compassionate and very caring of other people, where it's like they're not selfish enough, in a sense. Or that they don't look out for themselves in different ways for themselves. So these are kind of like shadow characteristics of our persona. And this can kind of give us a quick and easy way, in some sense, not particularly easy, but it gives us a framework of quickly seeing what possibly is the shadow within our personality from a lens of the persona, because the persona is the thing that we can quickly identify most quickly with ourselves. Of course, as I've said in previous videos, the thing that relates to the shadow the most is usually childhood trauma, because that is when we are hypersensitive to experience. So things that are very unbalanced, polarizing, and difficult to deal with in certain situations of us growing up, they become big points of experience for us when we're younger, and they can cause possibly what you might be able to say like maladaptive growth around those experiences, in which we then repress because we like kind of leave them behind in our childhood, but then don't approach them again to actually identify how they have affected us in our adulthood, in our adult lives. So in a deeper way, that most shadows characteristics are more rooted within the experiences of childhood trauma and the repressions that come from that, which of course I've gone into to some degree, but I will be releasing some worksheets around that for you guys to kind of work on for free that you can download, which I'll have a link in the description for the sign up newsletter for that if you want to get access to that. But that is one more quick way you can kind of identify aspects of your shadow in relation to your personality that is on the face of things or on the front of things with regards to your persona. And also you can check out the Instagram post that I made of this that is much more concise on my Instagram page, which is @ThoughtsOnThinking on Instagram, which you might want to check out. And of course other things on the idea of the shadow or the dark night of the soul, which is a more Christian way of putting it or looking at it. And of course, guys, if you're interested in doing any kind of one-on-one work with me with regards to aspects of procrastination, time management, things of this nature, shadow work, stuff like this, and you want to kind of get a good understanding of what I've been doing with people, then check out the landing page underneath this video. Of course, you can also sign up to the free shadow work journal, which I will be releasing soon, which will be free for you guys to use if you're interested in delving into this more, because it's very difficult to try and understand what this concept is about in relation to ourselves, because it's a very spiritual idea which we need to de-spiritualize to bring back to the self more in relation to a moral structure of how we are to view ourselves in relation to this world we are in. So if you're interested in that, make sure to click on those links down below. Free one-on-one discovery call where we can work together on many different things. with consultation calls, and of course the free PDF newsletter, which you can sign up for down below. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, guys, make sure to give it a like, comment your thoughts down below, and I'll speak to you all very soon.